Well, welcome to another air rifle adventure with myself, Dr. Russ, and today we have Izzy with us, who is a super duper vice president, whatever, of Donnyfl, and in large part he keeps the place running. We're not in southeast Michigan. We're in central Florida. We're south of Orlando.
Slightly north.
Slightly north of Orlando. So you'll get here before you get down to Disney World, and if you know what you're doing, you'll just stay here. Okay. Yeah. What are we doing today, Izzy?
All right, so you brought in this FX Crown. If I recall correctly, it's a FX Crown Continuum. I see you got your longer barrel there as well. I do see that you added an accessory on there, which looks really nice. But what we're going to do today is we're going to be adding our Saber Tactical chassis to it to make this a little more customizable for your shooting style or comfort, however you want to set it up as.
Now, Saber Tactical is the other half of the company, Donnyfl, that makes suppressors, etc.
Yes.
And but also it's Saber Tactical, and this is where you get guns ready to go into competition.
Yeah, pretty much. Everyone likes putting chassis on. They're very customizable. You can do a lot of stuff to them. So once you see it on, we'll talk about it more, and we'll let you.
And this is an FX gun, but you do Saber Tactical accessories for lots of guns.
Mainly FX Impact, Crown, and Dreamline. We have a few other items like for the Avenger. Nothing too big. But we are going to hopefully expand later on to other guns down the road.
And that might be because FX has been winning a lot of contests lately.
Yes.
Okay, what comes first?
All right, well, first of all, you got to make sure the gun is safe. So right now, it's safe there and it's not cocked. One way to tell if it's cocked or not is if you pull this back and it bounces back, it's not cocked. So that's what we want. We have our safety on safe, so it's not fire, everything's safe, ready to go. We do not need to degas the gun, but if it makes you more comfortable, you can. But first things first is we gotta remove this little lever here before we do anything else. So that's gonna be a 2.5 millimeter hex.
So before we can put this new stock on, this safety has to come off.
Correct. All right, so we're gonna put that in our little parts mat there. All right, that should be good. And there is a couple of screws down here, and these are 2.5 millimeter as well. Oh, sorry, not 2.5, 3 millimeter. It's easier with 4 hands, thank you. Alright, so now we should be able to slide the stock right off. Little wiggling, persuasion going on. Oh, sorry, I missed something else. The power wheel adjuster. Alright, so that's a 2 millimeter hex key on that. And this one you do got to be careful. There is a couple of little detent balls in there and springs. So when you pull this out, you got to be careful not to drop them. And sometimes they'll get stuck on the wheel itself, sometimes they'll stay behind. Those ones stayed behind, so we're just going to set that off to the side. See if I can get these off real quick. Alright, got one there.
Izzy, I haven't even shot this gun yet, but this power wheel, which was, I think, set on maximum.
Yes.
Depending on just what range I'm going, I could change that.
Correct. There you go. So now we just have this slide right out. Make sure not to lose your screws there because you will need them again if you decide to put this stock back on there. So we're just going to set that off to the side. We're going to grab this box here. We're going to open this up. Alright, so what we have in here, we have a FX grip. So these are the grips that come stock on like the Impact, the Dreamline. So AR style grip. Set that off to the side. We have a couple pieces that are to attach the grip to the chassis itself. We got a dummy block and a new safety lever. I'm gonna put that off to the side.
So everything you would need.
Everything you'll need
all
is
part of this
correct.
new chassis.
So we wrap this up with foam just to protect it during shipping and whatnot. So I'm gonna put that off to the side. But you can see
Oh yeah.
how quickly that comes out, folds up real easy.
So now we have a folding stock where before we did not.
Correct.
And what's good about this forward part of the stock? Why is it better than what I had?
So, for example, if you're going to be shooting competitively, you're going to want a bipod up front. So we got two options here. We got Picatinny and we got the Arca rail down here at the bottom. I have a Accutac Arca bipod up here. So what you do on these is you don't have to slide it in, but you can go from the side. I'll open that up a little. And need to open it a little more. So let's do that real quick. Thank you. There we go. Now you should have a couple. There we go. Now it should go.
Izzy, this bipod does not come with this stock, but it is another item that Saber Tactical has.
It's not from Saber Tactical. It's from a company called Accutac. Really good quality bipods. You can tell we got it on there already. But it's a mess. There you go. You can tell I just moved that. So there you go. So now, there we go. So now
Do our viewers get this bipod from your firm?
No. You can get these from Accutac, Utah Air Guns, Southern Precision Air. There's a lot of dealers that have these already on hand and they're available. This one runs anywhere from $300 to $350 just for that bipod, but it's a lifetime warranty on them. Super sturdy, great product. There's one of my favorite brands out there for bipods. Mainly that's what I shoot. This one here is Donny's. But we'll use that to help us in the assembly of this chassis. Alright, so I'm gonna leave that there, that's snug down. So we got a couple things going on here. So we got a screw here and we have another screw back here. We're gonna do those in a little bit. So if you can tell there's that screw. There's a piece of tape actually holding it in place. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna face this towards you. And I'm gonna pull this tape off. I'm gonna pull that out. We're gonna put that off to the side. Keep track of that. Alright, so we're gonna go back this way. And what we're gonna do, this is going to be pretty much a drop-in. And one other thing before I actually set it in there, where I remove the little detents, there's a couple of springs in there, there's grease in there. They're not gonna fall out unless you actually pull them out, but just keep in mind not to shake the thing around in case there isn't enough grease to hold them in there. So we don't wanna lose those at all. So those will be fine there. All we're just gonna do is drop this right in and you'll notice that it sits in there perfectly.
Yes, it does.
And what we're gonna do now, we're gonna pull out our dummy block. We're gonna unthread this screw. We're gonna set this up to the side with the other screw here. The dummy block goes back here. I'm gonna move that. And you see how it just fits in perfectly in there. We're gonna twist that slightly. I'm gonna put this right there.
Does the dummy block have any function?
No, it just keeps the bolt when you open it to cock it. It just protects it. I consider it as a tool to keep it clean because that bolt is greased. So if it's exposed and you're out in a dusty situation, or like let's say RMAC, you're competing out there, it gets very dusty out there. Every time you start caulking it, that dust builds up on that and pretty much turns into sandpaper, and then you don't want that. So I consider that a tool along with that, just to keep that bolt clean, so we don't have to keep cleaning that. So helps with the maintenance. Alright, so now that we got that dummy block installed there, I'm gonna go ahead and slide this upwards like that very carefully. And we're gonna put this right there. And this is going to be a 4mm Allen key. Alright, so it doesn't need to be super tight. Once you feel that slight resistance, just a very light snug should be more than enough for this.
Izzy, while we're right here, explain to our viewers why we have two pressure gauges.
Yeah, so we have our air cylinder up here in the front. So the first gauge is reading your air cylinder pressure, so it's actual pressure what's in the gauge, or sorry, in the cylinder or bottle. The second one is for your regulator. So this gun is regulated, so when you adjust your regulator up and down, there's an adjustment screw right down here. When you adjust that, you're adjusting your regulator. If you want to adjust the regulator pressure down, you do need to remove the bottle and degas the gun, and then you should be able to screw the regulator in to bring that pressure down. But you never want to thread it in while it's under pressure. You'll destroy that regulator.
Now right now, the regulator is set for 150. Is that a good setting?
That is a good setting for beginning, depending on the caliber.
25?
This is a 25, so I think it might be a little bit hot, but if you're running the shorter barrel, that's probably a really good setting because you're pushing that velocity a lot faster in such a short traveling distance compared to the longer barrel. So that should be good, and even if it was too much, you always have your
pressure.
Your transfer port adjustment here. So you can actually bottleneck that pressure transfer down to bring that velocity slightly down. So you can use that as a tool as well instead of just adjusting that regulator as well.
Now the regular pressure is telling us the pressure in our bottle.
Correct.
And it's right now at 300?
It is a 250 bar, which is your max fill on this gun.
Okay.
All right, so now since we're down here, we're gonna go ahead and add this little piece here.
How many shots might we get out of this particular setting in a 25 caliber?
I'm gonna say probably about 2 to 3 magazines. So if I recall correctly, your magazine holds approximately, I'm gonna say, I think it's like 15 shots per magazine on this, if I recall correctly.
So 30 to 45.
Yeah. All right, so unthread this. And that one's on there a little snug.
What is this piece called?
So this is a AR-15 adapter mount. So this is what actually allows us to add our AR-15
grip
adapter on there, or grip, correct. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and flip this over. I might need to remove the scope.
That's fine.
And I might need to remove the dummy block.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna get this out. That there, and bring this back out. And I think I might have done this a little bit backwards. I might have to remove the whole gun out of the chassis. Actually, no, that should be good. We are good. All right, so that's there. We're gonna put our short little screw down at the bottom in here. I got that on there. We're not going to tighten it down all the way. Actually, that's a 3mm.
Now that part is going to allow us to put this handle grip in.
Correct. And these do not need to be over tight, just a snug fit on there.
Everything's aluminum, maybe?
Everything is 6061 aluminum. We got that on there. At least we did not need to take the whole thing out. All right, I'm gonna set this back where it was. We might need to adjust this again to your eye relief since now we have a slightly different
Okay.
buttstock on there. So
The good
I'm
news
just
was
gonna.
it wasn't set anyway, so.
Oh. That's good then. All right, so I'm just gonna snug these lightly on there. I'm not gonna over tighten them because we might need to adjust them again. All right, so I'm gonna flip this over. And now we're gonna get this, and this is gonna be a 5mm Allen key. Might need a, there you go, push it out that way. Now we can set this on there. There we go. And this again does not need to be super tight. It is plastic, so if you over tighten it, you will deform the grip in there. But it's actually pretty solid just the way it is. So now we're actually done on the bottom side here. So now we can just flip this over to its side. And we're gonna put the little ball detents on there. And there is grease there, so that will help them keeping them in place so they don't roll off. If you have a magnetic tool, it will helps you pick them up. Ooh. One thing is stay aware that there's screws in places when you pick them up, so I forgot that one was there.
I'm glad you're making a few mistakes, that way people know. We didn't rehearse this.
No, we didn't. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and snug this down. And this one, you don't want to over tighten it because if you go too far, it will seize the adjustment screw here. So you just want it to where it allows you to move it without any binding issues at all. So we're going to leave that the way it is. Now we're going to flip it over and put our safety on. And we're going to go ahead and remove this. All right, so you remember the orientation that we put a safety on before we took it off?
Yeah,
Which was?
to keep the safety on.
Yeah. All right, so we don't need the old one, but we're
The
gonna
old safety lever.
the old safety lever. We're gonna save that for later. We're gonna put it in the same little bag it came in. So we're gonna do this. So right now the safety is like that. So we're gonna set it to where when it's like that, will be on, and like this will lock it up. So this is a 2.5mm Allen. And again, this does not need to be super tight, just snug on there. There you go. So now should be able to cock the gun. Now let me shoot. Forward for shooting. There you go. All right, so we got everything together.
And we don't need this safety
We
lever.
do not need that, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna put all the parts that we took off, we're gonna put them in a little bag because if you ever decide to go back to the regular chassis, you need to keep everything together. If you guys recall, there was a couple of screws, there's a bushing here for that buttstock. We're all just gonna put it in the same bag. Just make sure don't lose it.
Let's also show how this buttstock is adjusted too.
Yeah, we can do that. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Let's get some of these tools out of the way. Clean this area up a little. We're gonna need that over here. All right. So the buttstock does have 3 adjustments. First one is going to be back here. There's a little lever back here. You push that down. You see You got 5 different locking positions right there.
And you're pushing a lever on the other side?
Yeah, right here in the front.
Right there, okay.
Yeah, so you see how it pulls that pin out and it allows you to adjust it in the different locking positions. My favorite position is in the second position. It's not overkill, so that's where I like it. And then we have another adjustment here. So we have this thumb wheel. You loosen that up and it allows you to move this up and down, and then you just tighten it to lock it in place. And then there's another adjustment. This is a lock, and this goes with the other adjustment. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen these thumb screws slightly, and we're going to unlock it. And now this will allow us to slide the buttstock in and out. And there's about 12 different positions on there that you can adjust it to. So once you find the position you like, snug down these and it'll stay locked on. If you decide to get a bench monopod down the road, these will need to be swapped out and put on this side, because a bench monopod adapter will go on this side, and this will allow you to put a bench monopod on there as well.
And what does that do?
So the bench monopod, it allows you to do very fine movements while you're shooting. So it allows you to go up, down, left, and right. We do have the field version as well, which is just goes up and down, but it has a foot that actually is on a ball swivel. So if you're on an uneven surface, it allows you to have a nice adjustment up and down while you're at a slant or anything uneven surface.
Is that something Saber Tactical also keeps in stock?
Yes. Yep. And we have another adjustment here. I'm just going to make sure that these are snug down. So we have these other set screws here, and loosen those up, and there is another locking lever here. So what we're going to do is unlock it, and this will allow you to move your cheek riser up and down. So if you have really high scope rings, you can adjust this up and down or to your liking. Just depends on how you feel with it. Let's see, what else do we got here? I think we talked about the Picatinny. Oh, the M-lock. We didn't talk about the M-lock right here on this side. So there's a couple of rails on the side right here. These are M-locks. So if you want to add an additional Picatinny section here on the sides for infrared light or a flashlight or a laser, you can always add it there. I've seen other people mount their FX chronographs on the side here, making little custom plates and whatnot, and adapting it to there. So you're actually not putting the chronograph on the barrel itself, bringing your point of impact down.
Because anything that touches that barrel can change the flight.
Exactly, and it'll also change the harmonics of the barrel too. Okay, pretty much.
How do we change out this barrel?
Well, you can do that right now. So to change out the barrel, it's a 3mm Allen right here as well. There's 4 of them, so there's 2 on this side, 2 more on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and insert this. You do not need to remove the set screws completely all the way out. Just about 2 or 3 turns out, and then just flip it over. Alright, so now that we got those 4 loose, we should be able to just slide this right out. A little bindy there, huh? Let's see. Flip it over the other way. All right. Oh, this one's wound up pretty good. Let me check this here. It might be that they probably loosen or tighten this set screw up here a little too much, and what it is.
So there's 5 screws that hold it tight.
Yeah, this one up here should not be tightened down on the barrel that much at all, actually. All this is a transfer port set screw. There you go, see how that came out. So you see the marking right here?
Yeah.
If I rotate this, you see that hole right there. So that one's actually not supposed to be tightened down on that. That's just a plug to cover the hole where they drill the transfer port into the gun itself, for the valving and everything inside.
So it was not only too tight, but it was on the opposite side?
No, it's on there properly, it's just that is not meant to hold the barrel in place.
Okay.
It's just a plug to cover the hole that they drilled through in there. So we remove that. Put this in. And there's only one way that this will fit in. There's a little notch right here. There's not one on the other side. So this will only lock in one way, and that will be with the transfer port facing down into towards the bottle itself. So we're just gonna go ahead and snug that in right here. And again, you can see, I can turn it and you'll see where it just drops in right there. And that's where it needs to be. So we're gonna go ahead and snug these down. You don't wanna over tighten these yet until you got the other side snugged down. So just very, very lightly. Because you wanna tighten these down as even as possible. You don't wanna put too much stress on one side more than the other. All right, so that's nice and light. All right, so now that we got those, I'm gonna give it a little snug there. Come to the opposite side, snug there. And then the opposite side on the other screw, snug that one. And lastly is going to be this one. And that should be good. What I do recommend, and I'm gonna go ahead and remove this here. For those of you that didn't know or don't know, come on.
Or,
There we go. All right, so this here, like I said, is just a plug. So when they assemble the main action of the gun, they have to drill down into here to create the transfer port that goes up. This is just a plug. So what I do recommend putting on there is a little bit of Teflon tape or any kind of Loctite that is a sealing type Loctite, just to cover this hole up. You don't want to button this down all the way onto the barrel. It just needs to be just to where it goes underneath the surface of that flat top right here. So that does not need to be touching or tightening down onto the barrel. It'll crush the back of the transfer port on that barrel part there.
and it had a little bit of cream colored paint on it. That might have been a Loctite.
Yeah, that might have been some of the sealing. So when we get back to the shop, I'll put some on there for you. But other than that, that is pretty much it.
How do we put, do we need this piece off?
No, it actually has one already here. One other thing before we actually get too far is I would check these screws here. Sometimes when we do our Q and quality assurance, we make sure that we have all the parts, but sometimes we might miss something. So snugging these down will not hurt anything.
Now this time we're really tightening versus all the other screws before.
Correct, yeah. All right, so we got that there. Alright, so those are nicely tightened down.
Now Izzy, we know what this powered to. Let's explain this again.
So this here opens up your transfer port diameter. So on high, your transfer port is opened up as much as it can. Then the next one is a slightly smaller setting, so the transfer port is closing down. And then on low, it's pretty much the smallest it'll go. So you're pretty much bottlenecking the amount of air that goes into the barrel. So for example, on the FX Impact, you got that front valve adjuster to close that valve really fast. This gun does not have that, but if you restrict the air going into the barrel, that actually gives that valve time to close without using excess amount of air as well. So you can use it either as a power adjustment or to restrict the amount of air going into the barrel so you're not wasting excess amount of air every time you're shooting. And this here pretty much does almost the same thing, but it does not restrict the airflow. So this actually is preloading your spring for your hammer when you cock the gun. So if you have it at max, you have the maximum amount of spring compression in there that will give you the most amount of force to push that valve open. If you have it on minimum, that would be the lowest setting. It'll be very efficient. Your velocities are going to go way down. But again, you're tuning the gun to what you want to shoot or if you're gonna go with either pellets or slugs, that's how you go about making the adjustment along with the regulator on there.
I shoot a lot of critters at 85 yards. Which of these, what should we have these settings at?
It depends on the size of the critter. Let's say a squirrel, for example.
Woodchuck is,
Woodchuck? All right, let's say, I'm gonna say probably a medium on here, and you probably go probably down to like a 4. That should get you around the 900 feet per second area there, maybe 880. You don't wanna go too fast, because then pretty much what will happen is you'll hit the critter, and it'll come in one side and it'll come out the other side. You don't want to ricochet coming out, hitting something else down the road. You never know where that projectile is going to end up at. So you kind of have to gauge it. You know, a lot of people, they're very familiar with their property, so they know, so they'll just crank up the power and go full power at it. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you make a humane shot.
now that barrel, whether it's that one or this one, is really only this size.
Yes.
What we're looking at when we look at this and that is a second barrel, which is really called the Moderator.
Correct.
Okay.
So this one here, just like the one that we took off, it actually does have the threaded adapter on there already.
And we're seeing,
Yep, we have a little hole drilled out right there. So pretty much that
and it's on the big one too.
Yeah, so that acts as, the whole shroud acts as an expansion chamber. So when you take that shot, the excess amount of air goes into the shroud. It allows it to expand at a lower pressure, and the amount of air that's trapped in the shroud will vent out the hole back here, and then the rest of it will vent out the suppressor, reducing the report even further.
Okay.
With the longer barrels, you can go with a slightly smaller suppressor as well. This one's probably going to be a little bit heavy for this barrel. One thing with the light barrel system, which is what these are, there's no steel barrel liner inside. So pretty much everything that's being supported is just the shroud itself, and then the liner is actually centered with pucks within that shroud. So if you put too much pressure on there, or too much weight, I mean, you can actually knock that alignment from that liner to the exit border here. So you don't want to put too much weight on that.
So resting the gun on the barrel or letting any accessory attached to this moderated barrel is a no-no.
Correct. So we want to go as light as possible. With the longer barrels, it tends to be a lot quieter. So for this setup in the 25 caliber, I would recommend the Tanto, the Tatsu, or the Fat Boy. Those would be some of our smaller suppressors that would actually suppress this gun very, very well. My go-to for this, if I own this gun, it would be the Tanto for me.
The Tanto, okay.
Yep.
Much like Donny's wife.
Correct.
So show that up close, if you will. So if we're going to get into great accuracy or competition, we need to get some Saber Tactical parts on these guns.
Yes. You really don't need it, but having it does help greatly because it gives you more adjustability on there. So if you didn't have a chassis on there, I'm going to go ahead and lay this down after I just get done snugging these down. Just lay this down. So if you have this original stock on there, there's really nowhere to add a Picatinny rail or anything. You can always drill into here, but a lot of people don't really want to mess up their original equipment. But you can see how much more length you have here. So putting a bipod farther out will give you more stability than having it up here, because now right here you're just acting like a teeter-totter. You're pretty much pivoting in the center point. The farther you have it out, the more stability you have. So that's where the chassis comes in. You know, you can, like I said, you can add the bipod up here. You can add another bipod here if you want on the ARCA rail. Plus, you know, that bench monopod will help you out a lot more as far as adjusting for your target. Keeps everything from moving around. Everything's a lot more stable.
Now, some people put a bipod on, and we think of bipods as either straight up and down or folded up. But a lot of bipods today are angled out.
Yeah, so this one here actually angles out that way as well.
What does that provide?
So it actually provides additional length. So you see how we just kicked it out compared to having it straight out. You know, we got this short length right here. So kicking these out a little bit gives you about 4 more inches of length. So that'll actually stabilize it even further. And if you actually pull the legs out, not all bipods do that, but it actually gives you a wider stance as well. You will get the full stance at this angle. You can see how much wider that is. If I bend them out, you see how that stance kind of brings it in a little, but that's only about a 1 inch difference from the full folded back out.
Plus, they'll fold out of the way completely.
Correct. So you can actually bring these all the way forward. So if you have it on there, you can bring it forward all the way. Some bipods have a canting feature, so you can actually adjust this left and right. So if you're on a uneven surface, so like let's say for example, we have a rock or something, right? You can actually cant it and have it perfectly level while you're on, this leg is higher up somewhere else. Some of them have a rotating feature as well. This one does not have it, but they do exist. Accutech has a couple of models that do that as well. So having the right tools like the chassis will help you out in the long run for competition use, especially if you really want to get serious with it. A lot of customization, a lot of cross compatibility with other stuff. So if you got stuff from a firearm, like let's say a platform of an AR-15 that has a lot of Picatinny rails and stuff like that, a lot of that stuff fits on here, like the grips fit on this directly. A lot of the M-lock systems that the new rifles have nowadays will all fit on this as well. It does have, a lot of people don't know this, but this hole here is actually for a rifle sling.
Oh,
so
really?
It's a quick disconnect. So if you have a rifle sling that has a little detent with the little balls at the end, you just insert it there and it locks in place. So it's a quick one too. You got 2 locations here and on both sides.
Okay, and you can get one for Picatinny to a sling mount.
Correct, yes. So you can also add a sling mount onto this too. A lot of people don't know that, but they have a lot of accessories for the M-lock. There's a company out there called Magpul, which is the actual designer or inventor of M-lock systems. So if you want to look for accessories, Magpul is the way to go. There's other companies that license that design as well. So you can actually buy not just from M-lock, but from anyone else that make accessories for the M-lock system.
One of my sermons is that I preach on longer barrels.
Mm-hmm.
And we've just also converted this from a short barrel to a long, and that's what the Crown offers is 2 barrels. In shooting, what will be the noticeable difference between a short barrel and a long barrel?
So with a longer barrel, it will be more efficient, so you're not wasting as much air pushing the projectile down the barrel. That's just because it gives it a longer internal volume to allow the air to expand. If you're shooting out a shorter barrel, you got to crank up that pressure to allow that velocity to build up in that short distance. With a longer barrel, you bring that pressure down and still get the same velocity as that shorter barrel you got. So me, for example, I like shooting long barrels as well. And that is just because I like my shot count, and accuracy goes way up as well because you have more time for that pellet or slug to stabilize within the liner while it's traveling, and it causes the pellet or slug to stabilize longer in there. So by the time it comes out, it already has that spinning momentum at full velocity. At a shorter one, you got a tighter rifling in there. So you're trying to achieve this velocity and that spin on there, which will cause that stabilization. So that will actually, the shorter one will pretty much like, I'm all confused here, sorry. The shorter one will, you're trying to do a bunch of things within a short period of time. With the longer one, you know, everything's more relaxed, everything's not as stressing out. So I've noticed that on shorter barrels, they're very accurate still, but if you try to push them too far, they become unstable very easily.
Out beyond 70 yards is there?
Yes, correct.
Okay, now I know that you can also have too much of a good thing. If this barrel were to get out around 34, 35 inches, just beyond what Air Force does to their barrels,
Yeah.
now we've got too much space for that poof of air, and we start going downhill in velocity.
Yes, so that does happen. You can always crank up the regulator as well. So you can turn up the pressure on there so you got more air pressure going in there and open up that transfer port opening to a maximum size to allow more air to go in there to achieve that longer barrel. So on my impact, I got one of those 800 millimeter barrels. I did have to bring up the pressure up a little bit more. That was about 20 PS or 20 bar. I had to bring it up a little more just to accommodate for that. But the accuracy was spot on. It was perfect. With these, it's the same thing. As the longer the barrel is, just you gotta do a slight adjustment, you should be fine. A lot of the times, like I said, if you want to stay within the same velocity as a shorter barrel, you probably won't even need to adjust the pressure up on this, because like I said, it gives you more time for that air to expand compared to the short one where you're just pushing the projectile and wasting the unpressurized or unexpanded air out of the barrel.
Let's stay on rifling for just a minute. The different manufacturers use all different kinds of steels to make that rifle.
Correct.
And that's why you'll see them say, oh, shoot 500 pellets, which is really polishing that barrel.
Yeah.
FX,
You really don't need to. Everything's polished inside already when when you receive it. The barrel is like mirror finish inside. So pretty much you do want to shoot some before you actually see some results, and that's going to be like about 20 shots. And that is way better than shooting a whole tin worth just to get that barrel seasoned with whatever you're going to be shooting with.
so coming from the powder gun era, well, we like to see beautiful rifling. But when I look down an FX, I barely see the rifling, and yet they're winning all the contests.
Exactly.
How do you explain that?
So pretty much what it is, the rifling is there. It's just what they do is they pressure the outside of the liner with the machine that actually twists as it's going down the liner. So you're getting that indentation inside that barrel or the liner. And they call that a smooth bore. So it's a lot smoother, it's not as rough. So it being a lot smoother, it creates less resistance in there for the projectile to slide over, which is why these things are able to shoot at such high velocities with very efficient pressures.
Okay. Well, you've taught us a lot today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime.
Let me just remind our readers, if you thought you learned something, leave us a thumbs up. If you want to leave a comment, I love getting up early in the morning and responding to those. If I can't do them all, I'll just send them to Izzy.
I'll take over.
We'll see you in the next video.